Zolt?
Yeah, nailed it.
All right.
Okay, so we're live on YouTube.
Yeah,
here,
oh
guys.
boy.
Hopefully.
Oh, this has been quite a busy afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, just hustling all over the place, you know. Yeah.
We're just having some technical audio issues.
Uh-oh.
Like the
That's
mic's on
unfortunate. That's very unfortunate that I know nothing about this.
Is it because you've got the two computers going? Because this shouldn't be picking anything up.
I don't know about hooking up mics to other devices. I just know
Like, is there? Do you need to have both laptops running on it?
yeah, he's controlling the live stream.
Oh, I've never done live streaming before, so I'm useless at that.
Are you guys using What's that live?
Bill, can you talk?
Check, mic, check, one, check. Check, mic. How are you guys doing?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. How's your what is it? That
Safe moon?
Safe Moon, yeah.
Yeah, well.
Is that pumping or is that
Correct. Well, yeah, came crashing down.
it came
After last week's crypto event came crashing down.
the crypto event? Oh, really? So
But hey, I managed to take out a $1 grand profit, and I put that into Nakamoto.games.
so
It's kind of like Axie Infinity, you know, just play to earn.
right.
Yeah, using the Ether network, but oh boy, yeah, gas fees, right?
So you haven't had the rug pulled though.
No.
No?
Pull yet. Turns out that I was just stupid enough, and I didn't click on their profile picture.
What was that one last week that got the rug pulled? It was one of the dog coins. Not Shiba Inu, but another Shiba? No.
No, all I heard is that all I heard from
Squid Game is the one I heard.
Same here. Squid Game.
Which one?
Squid Game.
Squid, yes, that's what I'm thinking of, yes.
I haven't heard Shiba.
Yeah, no, it's out. Yeah, that Squid Game was a complete rug pull.
Oh yeah, exactly. They ran off with $3.2
million. That's right, yes.
I didn't even know that was a token until I heard it like go into zero. I was like, oh, that existed?
Yeah,
Very glad I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there are better shows than Squid Game. It's called Total Drama Island.
Hello. We got Cody here. Maybe Cody can help us, Leander.
What's up?
We're having feedback audio issues.
Yeah, I already know how to do it right now.
For the show.
Is Monero even on Oh, it's coming soon. Yeah.
Bitcoin Cash, Dash is not even on there.
Yeah.
Or actually, there's no liquidity, I guess. No,
I've got no control over those.
yeah, I know.
No control. They're all like BitAccess does all that, and it's all regulation, right?
Yeah.
You know, you can't put squid coin on there, right? So, how you doing, Cody? We are almost ready, but we're just having some feedback issues that we can't figure out. So Ethan needs to hear us, but when we have the volume up there, it's like echoes. We can't.
The worst poutine that I ever had, McDonald's. I never get poutine from McDonald's.
A lot of people don't like the poutine. I had it. That's about home.
You know what? Guys? I just lied to you. I'm very sorry. The worst poutine was at a place called Calico in Moose Jaw. Absolutely cheap. Well, cheap as in ingredient wise, but expensive when you're actually buying it. You essentially got.
Oh, that's that place in the mall.
Yeah, and they closed down because of the pandemic. Very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate.
Well, no, they closed down probably more because that mall was just dead. It was dead. That mall was dead before COVID. I honestly don't know how they stayed in business. Hello, hello. Welcome, you guys again. Excellent. We're just having some technical audio issues. Already, yes. Well, this is our first time doing this, so we're kind of figuring it out. We're trying to do Zoom to bring everybody together, but yet live stream it at the same time on YouTube. So we're just having some audio issues here. So hello, hello. Oh wow, look at this. We're got a full house here. Hey, how you doing?
This is our executive podium. He's a famous person in Canada, so you should be on site. This is my city now.
Okay, people actually came out. This is good. This is good. Yes, I like it.
Are we going to be seen in the stream, like the seats here?
Pardon me?
Are they going to see us in the stream?
I believe so.
I think my nose is on YouTube.
Well, no, the idea was not to put a camera right on the audience, just because some people may not want their faces on the stream, right? So we were thinking of putting a camera in the back, so it just shows the background, the back of the heads of everybody rather than the front. But everyone's masked, so really they shouldn't care if they're. So.
Is Jen making an appearance?
Oh, okay. Cool.
You can ask.
Cool. Yeah, and then in that case, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself whenever. People are just starting to flood in here. I can just shoot you a text when we're ready, I suppose, too, if that works for you.
Oh, look at that. We got more people coming. This is great. Hello, hello. Welcome. Welcome back. Look at that. I should have brought, we got a couple more chairs we can bring out, actually. Or you can stand if you want.
Good news, everyone. You can hear us right now.
Excellent.
All of YouTube can, as a matter of fact.
All of YouTube. So we're live right now?
I guess so, yeah. So let's see here. We got about 30 seconds before I'll let you do your thing here, Bill. And introduce everyone. I'm not sure. Maybe we should wait a bit. Maybe we'll get him on the call and we'll then just hang out for a couple of minutes just in case people start to flood in.
So we're not going to see him on video?
Nope. I think he's going to come on when he's ready there, when everything's
You guys can cut those 2 chairs from the office too. Pull those out.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple more. Hello, hello. Come on in, grab a seat. Nobody wants to sit in the front row. You're double vaxxed? Yeah. Excellent. I trust you.
Good. My word.
Excellent. Just keep your mask on, though. We are live. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to QuickBit Talks with Ethan Liu, the author of Once a Bitcoin Miner. I'd like to welcome all of our live audience, and I'd like to welcome all the YouTubers that are joining us. And this is a live stream and a live event from QuickBit, the crypto boutique in Regina, Saskatchewan. Welcome, everybody. So we have Ethan Liu in attendance here on Zoom here. And Ethan Liu is a journalist, an entrepreneur. He has worked in, his work has taken him around the world in many, many different spots. He's a graduate of the University of Toronto, and he was employed by Routers, and he's written many columns in major news publications, and including the Financial Post. Ethan has published 2 books. The first one was Field Notes from a Pandemic, and his second book, Why We're Here, is Once a Bitcoin Miner. The Times Magazine has also published an article about him and his book. And QuickBit, the crypto boutique would like to welcome Ethan Liu. Welcome. Did he hear that? Did you hear that, Ethan? Did you hear me, Ethan?
Mm-hmm. Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Dale.
Did you hear my introduction, Ethan?
Yes, I did. Some technical issues, but yes, I heard you.
All right. Okay. Well, welcome. And we're here to talk about your book, Once a Bitcoin Miner. And we have a live audience of about 15 people. And they're interested in hearing your story. So I was wanting to actually spend a couple minutes, if you can tell us about your book, Field Notes from a Pandemic, because we're still in a pandemic right now.
So yeah, that was my earlier book, and while it's my first book to be published, it's actually the second that I wrote, because this book was more or less already written. This Bitcoin book was already written last year, and it was supposed to be published last year. But last year, right before the pandemic, I was visiting China, and my grandfather there, he was dying at the time, and I was going to see him. And it was just like really just a day before everything went to shit. And so I got caught in the pandemic lockdown in China, and I ended up writing a book about that. So that book pushed the Bitcoin book to this year.
Okay, I see. Right. What was the, like, if you describe that book in a broad brush, how would you describe your book?
Well, it's a pandemic journey through I guess it's described in the book as a world suspended. And it's also about my thoughts on the pandemic, about how I guess it's an unprecedented event with long-lasting effects that will shape the world for years to come.
Oh, completely. In Saskatchewan here, we have many opinions on the pandemic. We have a lot of pro-vaccination people in Saskatchewan, and we have a portion the non-vaccination people, and it's very the conversation goes on and on and on, and it won't stop. And some of the anti-vax people in Saskatchewan, they're very, very strong with their opinions, and the vaccination people are pushing the non-vaccinated people really, really hard to go and get vaccinated. And it's hard. I respect the positions of the people that don't want the vaccination. But then you look at the numbers, the vaccinated people and the numbers, and it's hard to argue that the vaccinations, they are actually doing something good. So it's a really tough conversation. Is that the same way in Toronto?
Yes, yes. And I think these fault lines have always existed in our society, this degree of polarization, and the pandemic has just put everything into the fore.
What I find interesting is that when the pandemic started and leading into Bitcoin, the hardcore Bitcoiners, when we first get into Bitcoin, we learn about Bitcoin, and then we learn about money, and then we learn about economics, and the hardcore Bitcoiners are not fans of fiat currency in any way, shape, or form. And what's frustrating for me was when the pandemic started and Trudeau and the government, they started handing out money. It's like we're all saying we knew we're going to be in the position that we're in today in terms of inflation and the unstable economy because of COVID. And it's like I was one of the first ones to say, like, they can't be printing all this money so fast, because we're going to be paying for it down the road in a couple years from now. But at the same time, I said to myself, well, what's the solution? There's no solution. So it was a really, it's a hard dilemma to be in. And I've often wondered, if we had sound money, like let's say we were still on the gold standard, we probably wouldn't have Bitcoin right now if we were still on the gold standard. And if we had sound money, and if the majority of the population had more wealth, more savings across the board, would we still be in the same situation that we are in today? Kind of, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think I'm an optimist. I like to look on the brighter side of things, and we are not the ones having it the worst. A couple of days ago, I saw a headline in Argentina. The government was going to increase grocery prices for 90 days. And what kind of a world would you have a headline for the government to feel it needs to step in to freeze prices? And I think we think we have it bad here, but in Venezuela, people are shaving off things of gold to pay for stuff. Like this is an actual headline.
Wow.
I think these are prime environments for Bitcoin to thrive.
I've always felt that, like a pandemic like this somebody has to pay for it, right? There's a cost to it, right? So if we had, if all of the population had a let's say 100 or $200,000 in savings. Let's just take that number for an example, and that was spread across the population, and the government shut down the economy. So individuals and business owners, sure, it would suck that they would have their businesses shut down, or they can't work, but they would have savings to support themselves for a period of time, right? Right, with the fiat system and in inflation, where the money goes to the 1%, the 80 or 90% of, there's such a large population in Canada with, no savings, right? It's everybody's in debt. So the government had no choice but to just print more money. And like I say, I don't know what the result would be if, say, we were on the gold standard, everybody had good savings, and the pandemic hit. So we would never know. Like we've only known fiat money up until Bitcoin, right? So that's I've always wondered that. So
What if?
Yeah, I've always been bothered by, like, I agree with what the governments do. I agree, or the measures that the government is taking is fine and fair and understandable. But when they shut down the economy, and the small business owners are the ones that are suffering. And I've always been an advocate for the small business, where the rules are there's rules that are better for Walmart than the corner store. But I've always said that the politicians and the health authority people that were saying shut the economy down hard, I've always felt that if the government said to the politicians that want to shut the government down, if they said, you have to come up with 50 grand cash of your personal money, put it into a COVID relief fund immediately, I think those people, their attitudes would change about shutting down the economy. So my personal opinion is that the majority of the cost to the pandemic, the small business had to pay that. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Last financial crisis, it was a lot worse in terms of how the governments responded. Back then, the way they tried to deal with everything, even more of the money went to the big corporations. And I think this time they kind of felt that what they did back then, that was a bad idea. They caught a lot of flack for it. And this time it's still not perfect, but I think the response is much better.
Okay, yeah. I think that, yeah, the governments it doesn't matter which way you slice it, they were in a tough spot, right? So nothing that they did would have been right for everybody. So, but anyways, we've gotten completely off topic here. If you want, let's get into your book. Tell us about your book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I got into Bitcoin, I think fairly early, 2013, which was when you got into it as well, right, Dale? And so over the years, I've had quite the adventures. I met Gerald Cotton, I've met Anthony Diorio, and I was in North Korea with Virgil Griffith, who eventually got arrested by the FBI for that trip. And so I wrote a book on it.
And tell us a little bit, roughly go through the book from rough highlight points. Tell us about Jan.
So I think there are lots of books written about Bitcoin and crypto that look at it from either a computer science or monetary policy perspective. And here in my book, I try to look at it from the perspective of the human condition. So it's a narrative nonfiction. It's meant to read like a novel, and ultimately it's a series of stories about people and their lives in and around this space. And Jan Serrato, he is one of the characters in the book, and he had a bit of a complicated past. And through Bitcoin, around 2017, that was when I think that was the most significant boom, 1,000 to 20,000 for Bitcoin. Lots of people got very rich, and I think for Jan, he found a new life. He became a new man, and he rose to riches. But there wasn't a lot of thought put into running a lot of the operations, and a lot of people were just winging it, and ultimately the whole thing ended in scandal and ended in a case now before the Alberta Securities Commission.
When I read the book, um, I wasn't sure if he was a good guy or a bad guy. Clearly, in the book, at the end of the book, he's bad, right? He did a lot of bad things, right? Uh, you had gotten, you had talked a lot about him with his meetups, and it seemed to me that the message that he was sending was about Bitcoin was genuine. I could be wrong, but ultimately, yeah, you don't form a whale club and ask a whole bunch of people to put your money into this fund, right? Without thinking about, well, maybe the regulars that the regulators might have an issue with this, or um, like it just seemed to me he wasn't very smart. Is that the case?
Yeah, I try not to label people with absolutes such as good or bad. I think everyone has their own story, and everyone has their own interests, and they are very passionate about their interests, and they fight very hard for them. And for him, like you said, he founded this. Well, he would say that he didn't actually found the Whale Club, but he had advertised it, he had promoted it, and he issued instructions to his team members. And this Whale Club pooled together lots of people's money. And these people, they knew very little about crypto. But they thought Jan knew a lot, but Jan would later say that he knew nothing about investing. And at one point, where he didn't even have any idea of even basic information, such as to whom some money in the Whale Club belonged. And it was a lot of money in there. He told everyone that it was, he didn't tell everyone, he told one $1 million. And in the bull market, that was a crazy time. If you remember, every coin was booming. You didn't need to know what you were doing to make money. But then the crash came, and yeah, everyone, the Whale Club tanked, and everyone lost a lot of money. And this was when the Securities Commission were onto him. But he's not charged for losing the people's money. The Security Commission actually doesn't care about that. It's just on a technicality that he did not have the proper paperwork, and he says he has the proper paperwork, and we are awaiting a decision on that.
Okay, tell us about uh, like there's about four scandals that you talk about, or is it more throughout the book? Like there's the Quadriga scandal, there's Jan, there's what what would be the list of the overall scandals that you covered in the book?
Yeah, I think four is pretty correct. So there's that one involving the Whale Club. There is Quadriga, and there is the whole North Korea thing, and there is the whole thing with oleum.
Yes. So oleum was basically a ICO. At the end of the day, that's what they were.
An attempted ICO, so it didn't even get to that stage. And at the center of it is a man also with a complicated past. And I think, well, I know everyone is an individual. His name is Steve. He and Jan, I think there is a commonality between them in that they have come from complicated pasts. And this this field of Bitcoin and crypto, it is very indiscriminating. Anyone can enter. And when you enter, the most experienced person right now only has more than 12 years more experience than you. And it's where everyone has more of an equal footing when they get in, as much as we can get to such absolutes. So he and Jan, they were trying to find new lives for themselves, to abandon their past, to be born anew. And so he had this oleum thing. It's a attempted ICO project, very ambitious, wanted to raise 200 million, but it basically never got off the ground. It was mired in lots of lawsuits. And ultimately, Steve, I don't, what he sought when he came into this world, I don't think he ever found it.
It's really interesting for me because I was in Calgary at the Bitcoin rodeo that you had talked about, and Oleum, they put on that event, didn't they? Eh?
Yeah, but I think by then maybe they already knew that the ICO thing was never going to happen, because even at the meeting when they were planning that conference, there was no more talk of selling tokens. So the basic idea of Oleum was to sell tokens to fund oil and gas projects, and the tokens would entitle you to royalties when those untapped oil deposits were being drilled. But they told, I wrote about that when I was at Reuters, and back in 2017, they told me they were going to sell their tokens at the start of 2018, and that never happened. And the deadlines kept getting pushed back, and ultimately they just held a conference.
It was a great conference. We had a great time, actually.
Oh yes, it was a good conference, but at the same time, it was set against I guess kind of a dark time in crypto. That was 6,000 per Bitcoin, if you remember those days.
Yeah, I would love to bring Bitcoin beer to Saskatchewan.
Bitcoin Buckaroo Brew.
Yeah. So
that's
tell
a good
us
brewery,
about
though.
your journey, your personal journey through, like, you're juggling two careers. You have a career as a journalist. You discover Bitcoin. You go into Bitcoin mining. You're attending all these different events, these blockchain Bitcoin conferences. You're going to different parts of the world. Tell us about your journey, especially when the light came on with you for Bitcoin. Like every hardcore Bitcoiner has the story about when the light goes on, when they just figure it out. When the light turns on and then you're sold, you're all in. Tell us a little bit about that, and I want to highlight pages 58 and 59, I believe, in your book, and I'd like you to talk about, I believe it's Nia. You're at Reuters, and she asked you if you own Bitcoin, and you didn't tell her everything or how involved you were with Bitcoin, but you describe yourself as being a little bit of a revelation yourself, because you didn't really realize what you had. Is that correct? Tell us that, your story, and highlight on that.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, I think everyone has one of those stories, and what's fascinating is that everyone's is different. And I don't think I had a light bulb switching on moment for me. It was a very slow, I guess the light, it started from being dark and it slowly got brighter and brighter. And I first heard of Bitcoin in like 2012, 2013. And that was during my second year of university. And that was on the dark web. And I saw people were trading in that. My first time on the dark web, it was back when Silk Road was still running. And I think I saw a little bit of the value in that. Why were people trading with that on the dark web? It's because it's peer-to-peer and theoretically out of the control of any government. But I don't think I really saw with a 10, the value, maybe it was at like a 3 or a 4. And it took maybe a whole year. And so I only bought my first bought Bitcoin toward the end of 2013. And in the middle of that, there was a conversation with Anthony Diorio. He later went on to co-found Ethereum, but back then there was no Ethereum yet. But we had that conversation, and that pushed me on a little bit. And I held on through the bear market of 2014 and 2015. And so 2017, that was when not just Bitcoin, but all the other coins, most of them have, I think 90% of them are now shit coins and have lost all their value. But back then, everything was just booming so crazily. So when I had that conversation with Nia, I think I was actually a millionaire at the time. And I think because all this is just theoretical money, if you don't cash it out, I didn't really think of that. But it was only when she asked that I had that realization, hey, I suddenly have a lot of money. I don't have $1 million now, though. The crypto winter was quite brutal, the one after that.
It sounded like things were happening so fast, right? And you got this stuff a few years earlier, it wasn't much value, it didn't mean much, you kind of forgot about it a little bit. And then when the bull market comes, you just like, everything comes, like that bull market was fast, like 3 months, and then all of a sudden, you realize, like, to me, that's fascinating that you realize, holy cow. So I think that the journey for everybody is, like, for me, it took me 2 years. And I actually got into the business, the BTM business, without knowing about Bitcoin. And we started the business, and then it was after that I decided, well, maybe I should learn about this Bitcoin stuff if I'm in the BTM business, right? So it took me 2 years of watching videos, watching Andreas Antonopoulos, learning about it in that way. And in 2014, 2015, we were still unsure if this was going to take off. So for me, I was being cautious all the time. And then when 2017 came around, that was 2 years of, learning about, the consensus algorithm, learning about the features, the fundamentals of Bitcoin. And then it was after 2 years that the light came on and said, this is here for good. I'm all in, I would never went to the maximalist level, but I'd say 80%. And every story is different. And I love hearing other people's stories about their journey through Bitcoin. So, but anyways, I'm going to see if there's any questions from our audience. Is there, Leander?
Yes, sir.
By the way, Leander McLean is our technical producer here. He is employed by QuickBit. Should we go to the chat box? Is there any questions in the chat? Okay. Is there any questions from the audience? Okay, you guys got to have questions. North Korea. More specific. Want to hear more about North Korea?
Yes, sir.
Okay, tell us more about North Korea.
So North Korea has been subject to lots of economic sanctions, and crypto is theoretically a way around those sanctions, and those sanctions are actually quite crippling. They are what is keeping North Korea really, really poor. So North Korea has been accused of stealing coins all over the place, doing lots of shady stuff with crypto. So 2018, it announced a conference, and I just thought that was a good opportunity to see for myself what's going on in North Korea. So that conference took place 2019. It was very contrary to my expectations. But all in all, it was an unforgettable trip. And toward the end of 2019, I think it's almost 2 years to the day. It was 2019, sometime in November, when Virgil Griffith, who was with me in North Korea, he is quite a big shot at Ethereum Foundation. He is the director of special projects, and he was arrested toward the end of 2019, and he was accused of helping North Korea break sanctions through what he said at the conference. He was teaching them about this technology, and he had a very bad 2 years. And at one point he was out on bail, but he got hauled back to prison because he tried to access his crypto against bail conditions, and pleaded guilty last month. I saw him in court, and he has developed depression, and I feel very bad for him.
So how does somebody get into North Korea to start off with? Like you were living in Calgary at the time?
Yes.
So you're sitting in Calgary and you hear about a conference in North Korea, and you're thinking, I'm a Canadian. It was just kind of, let's go. Like how did you, like most people don't just, let's go visit North Korea. Like there must have been a lot of red tape you would have had to go through just to get there.
Surprisingly little, actually. So North Korea, right now you can't go there because of the pandemic, but pre-pandemic it was open to tourists, so anybody could go. You just have to I guess it's more red tape than, say, if you just want to hop on a flight to like France or something. But you have to send in an application, you have to fill out a form, you have to pay a lot of money, and you have to get a visa from the embassy in Beijing. And the thing about North Korea is that their planes are so old that the planes are like from the, I don't know how old they are, but they're so old that they're banned from the European Union and they can't fly long distances. So the only ways in from Russia or from China. And so after all the applications, we flew from Beijing to Pyongyang.
Did you have to get permission from the Canadian government?
Nope. But American people, they need to get permission from their government, because there was a kid who went to North Korea. His name is Otto Wambier, and he ended up detained in North Korea. And the official charge was that he stole a poster or something while he was drunk. And it's probably believable because they drink a lot in North Korea. But he wasn't held in very good conditions, and ultimately he died. And so the US, they banned everyone from going to North Korea. And that's what did Virgil in, because he was the lone American in the group, and he tried to seek the permission before he left. But of course the US government said you can't go, but he said, fuck it, I'm going to go anyway. And so the government was watching him right from the start.
Okay. How many people were at the conference? Like, was it, must have been the majority of the attendees must have been international people. Like
No.
how big is the blockchain or the crypto community in North Korea to all go to? And like what were they compared to our conferences in North America, like Bitcoin 2021, consensus in New York, or unconfiscatable in Las Vegas? What are they, the same, or are they different, or what?
See, my thinking before I went, it was kind of like yours. Like, well, what kind of conference am I? Like the premise of my thinking was that it was going to be a conference, but it might totally wasn't. It was I think presented to us as a conference, but when we went there, it was actually it was a conference for the Koreans. They were, I think, the Koreans were told that there were only 8 foreigners. There are these 8 foreign experts who are here to teach you to present about blockchain.
Wow.
And so there were like 60, 80 Koreans, but we had no idea. So Virgil Griffith, before he went, he knew he was going to be a speaker because he was already a big shot. But the rest of us, first day, they told us, so you guys are actually the speakers. And it was a surprise for us. And so I ultimately declined to present, but those that did, they basically made up their stuff just a day or two beforehand.
So how many people in total were in attendance?
Like 60 to 80 Koreans, but it wasn't like a conference that you and I would know. There wasn't any intermingling between the people. It was like it was more like a seminar. So that's exactly what it was like. So
okay,
the Koreans would all be watching us present, and that was it.
So were you put on the stage saying you do your speech? Like, were you?
So to give you an idea of the setup of the room, so it's like imagine a bigger version of a conference room, and there's like a circular table in the center, and all the Koreans would be around the table, but not at the table. And every day they would bring the 8 of us in. We would sit around the table, and we would be in the center of the room, and everyone would watch us present. And I didn't actually present, but I was seated there.
Oh wow. Okay, cool. Is there any other questions from the audience?
Yeah. Do you think Gerald Cotton's actually dead?
Did you hear that question?
No.
Okay, that question came from Cody from our audience here. He asked do you think that Gerald Cotton is actually dead?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. So I wrote in my book, there was this guy from Russia who said he had information that Gerald Cotton is actually alive, and he was trying to sell it to me, but it could very well have been a scam. I do know that Gerald Cotton's widow, she says she's the widow, she's writing a book, and it's with a mainstream publisher, and it's called Bitcoin Widow. And so if Gerald Cotton didn't die and she's lying, it would be a lot of egg on the publisher's face. And the book is also to be ghostwritten by quite a respected author. So if she's lying, it's also egg on the author's face. So I think the odds would point to that he actually died.
I obviously watched. I was a part of that whole deal too, and I dealt with Quadriga. I spoke with Gerald a couple times on the phone, but this was in 2014. But the story. So I obviously followed the story insanely in detail during the height of it, and it's just so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Like, you could easily think, yeah, he's still alive. You could easily convince yourself saying, he's still alive, but there's also credible information that said he's probably dead. So it's just such a bizarre story that, I think I shouldn't be giving my personal opinions out, but yeah, it's hard to say.
It's a free country.
I think he's still alive. I'm going to say that publicly.
Well, if you follow this closely, you probably would know that he had a very detailed will, right? He allocated a specific amount of money for his 2 dogs. And if his will is that specific, how would he leave out his passwords.
I think Gerald is was a very, very smart guy. When you go to India with lots of money, you can do a lot. What I couldn't figure out was how a hospital would release a dead body and send it to a hotel. Like, that's just bizarre to me. and you know, the wife has got to deal with this. How do I get this dead body back to Canada that's in my hotel room? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me, you know, and that's documented factual information.
I guess when you have money in some parts of India, there are lots of things that you can do.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So I don't know, but it's the whole Quadriga case. Like, there was no regulation it was the Quadriga fiasco that basically jumped the regulators into high gear to regulate the industry in Canada. And I think it's been very good. The regulation is good, and to operate my business is a heck of a lot easier than it was before Quadriga went down, before the regulation came in. So I think the regulation is good, and I'm saddened that if the regulators came in stronger before the Quadriga fiasco, we may not have had the Quadriga fiasco. But hindsight's always the best view, right? But I think the regulation in Canada that they put on, you know, crypto has been very good, and it's unfortunate. It's I guess it's human nature where something really bad has to happen before the regulators say, okay, we got to do something here.
Yeah, but I think with the hawkish regulation, we have also seen, for example, the withdrawal of Binance. Yeah, which I think has not made those regulations very popular.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. So, yeah, I think the Quadriga story is it's sad, but he was a very smart man, I think, and it just doesn't make sense to me that he would be. You know, he was a smart guy, and when you have a lot of money in India, especially crypto. So, but anyways, is there any other questions from the audience?
Who do you think
Who do you think
Satoshi is?
Satoshi is? There we go.
Not Craig Wright.
Not Craig Wright.
Well, the court case is going on right now, so we'll see.
Yeah, the court case is going on right now, so we'll soon find out.
Yeah, that's such a fascinating court case.
Any other questions?
What about Sergey?
Sergey.
Yeah.
Tell us about Sergey.
I mean, the potential for Sergey being Satoshi.
The potential for Sergey being Satoshi.
I don't think I'm.
I don't know
who's Sergey?
Is. The creator of Chainlink.
Check it out.
Probably not. I've heard of lots of names thrown around about who is potentially Satoshi, but this is the first time I'm hearing of the Chainlink guy, and I think ultimately it is good that we don't know who Satoshi is, and it is good that Satoshi's money is still hasn't been moved, and I think that's what makes Bitcoin different from so many other coins out there.
I think it's Hal Finney. But
yeah,
I could be wrong. You know, so yeah, but that's just my thoughts. Hard to say, but any other questions from the audience? YouTube questions.
Future of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is going?
Oh, what's that?
Where do you think the future of Bitcoin is going?
Where do you think this is coming from? The YouTube questions?
No,
Uh,
it's
where do you think that Bitcoin and crypto is going in the future?
Mhm. Well, I think we will see more countries follow in the footsteps of El Salvador, making Bitcoin its legal tender. And I think that is especially so for lots of countries in Latin America. We have seen what we talked about earlier, the how bad the inflation situation there is in so many of those countries. And I think depending on how you define crypto, we will see the rise of the central bank digital currency, and particularly in China, which has been pushing its China coin just really, really hard. And we will see a day where everyone in China will be transacting with the central bank digital currency, and it will represent, I think, a major encroachment of the state in people's everyday lives. And because if you have the Chinese central bank digital currency, the government is going to be able to not just monitor but also program it. And um, I think we will definitely see Bitcoin hit 1 million one day, but I think that will not just be entirely be because of Bitcoin's appreciation. A large part of it will also be because of the depreciation of the dollar.
I personally believe in the game theory where, um, when the dominoes fall, when one country makes it legal tender, and then another country does, and then the third country feels pressure that they have to keep up with the Joneses, um, and when that grows to the bigger country, that's when we're going to see it be really, really interesting, right? When you have the geopolitics between the big countries, uh, one's adopting Bitcoin and the other's not, and then the other has to follow this one. This smaller country is going to follow the bigger country, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be fascinating. So,
Yeah, but I think El Salvador, the first domino might not be El Salvador because maybe it is too early. Maybe the world isn't ready for that yet. And I think particularly in the world of politics, easy come, easy go. If it can so easily make Bitcoin its legal tender, I think when Nayib Bukele is gone, they will his whatever rival of his steps up can very easily unmake it.
true too, yes. What I'm fascinated about Bitcoin is that when you get into the philosophical angle of the discussion, when you break down, the human, the person there, uh, at the end of the day, everybody in their in their conscience, they have a choice. They can make choices, right? People make choices every day, right? And when it comes down, when you go break it down to that base level, people will eventually make a choice and realize that Bitcoin and hard money or sound money is way so much better than fiat currency. And I think that people will eventually just figure it out and make that choice themselves personally. And it's all about adoption. Do you kind of feel the same way?
Yeah, um, I do. And let me tell you a story. So I heard this story from someone else, but it's a true story that the refugees, when they leave Afghanistan, they don't get to take their money because of how bad their infrastructure is and just money is. They leave penniless. And I don't think we talk about that enough in the news. We just see the refugees leaving, Taliban coming in, but they leave with nothing. And but there was this young lady who had Bitcoin because there was a wave of westernization there when the coalition government was still in power, and she had 2 Bitcoins. And when she left Afghanistan, it was a very harrowing journey. She crossed like Iran and Turkey, and her ship sank in the Mediterranean. But when she landed in Germany, she was able to essentially carry 2 Bitcoins in her head because she memorized her passphrase. And yeah, she was able to use that to fund a new life, basically. And I think we take for granted all our financial infrastructure here. I think lots of people still do, but we forget how fragile it is. And maybe here we might not have that impetus to push us for most people. But I think maybe it takes an event like what happened in Afghanistan to push everyone.
Yeah, I think people are going to eventually come to a point where they're going to say enough is enough. With inflation, taxes, payment processing fees, bank fees, interest, it's going to come to a point where people are just going to say enough is enough, and we need to do something else. And doesn't happen tomorrow. It'll be over time. But so my commentary, and I believe you'll completely agree with me, getting back to the Wild West days of your book. Do you believe that the Wild West days are over?
Absolutely not. We are still so early. It's just like what, 11 years? Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I knew you were going to say, and I believe that too. Like in 2017, the ICOs were, massive, as you say. You were able to throw a dart anywhere on the dartboard and you made money. And what I'm seeing now is that we have a new wave. We're still early. It's still Wild West days. It's a new wave of scams, of opportunists, from the NFTs to the decentralized finance. Now we're getting into the virtual world. What the virtual world?
Metaverse.
Metaverse, yes, metaverse. And this is all new ground. This is all new territory, and people are going to be taking advantage of it just the same as they all did in 2017. So this is a new wave of, good projects are going to come out of it, but there's going to be a lot of bad. There's going to be many, many more fingers burnt, and with that risk. And I think your book is good because, if you're new to, if you're coming in new to crypto and you learn what happened in the past and look out for yourself moving forward. So I think you have a very, very beneficial book. Like the NFTs are really cool. I really like the DeFi space, but it's scary.
Yeah, and I think all these meme tokens these days. I think earlier I heard you talk about the Squid Game token.
Oh yeah.
That is really dangerous, and I think even like Shiba Inu, for example, it's like a rip off of a joke coin, and Wealthsimple just listed it, and I actually think that's quite irresponsible of it because, like Wealthsimple's whole brand is to get all these uninitiated people into finance, to get them all investing. And I think lots of people who sign up for Wealthsimple, they not just crypto, they might not even know much about like traditional securities. And it's a big leap from that to Shiba Inu, which is, I like to think of stuff like that as gambling at a casino, and nothing wrong with gambling at a casino. Like I like to bet on sports sometimes, but it shouldn't be presented as like the same with like traditional investing. And I think lots of people just entering, they cannot tell the difference.
And it's really interesting how, the regulators they came after BitConnect in 2017, 2018, those types of ICO scams. And as you would think that like a DeFi or a DAO, you know, it'd be harder to come after them. And if it's a scam DeFi platform, right, it's going to be a lot harder for the regulators to slap their hands versus, you know, BitConnect in 2017. So
Yeah, I guess it's
I think that yeah, a lot of people are going to get burnt, and they're just going to have to learn the hard way. So it's interesting.
yeah, and yeah. Speaking of all this, going back to Jan Serato, whom we talked about earlier, that there's I just realized that since we're talking about scams now, there's a whole aspect of this man that we haven't talked about yet. That the first time I ran into him, and I should tell you his side of the story, that he so it was at a meetup that listed him as the organizer, and people that were basically selling a scam, and he would later say that he had nothing at all to do with it, but he was there, he was listed as the organizer, and it was basically an MLM scheme. And they just called it crypto. They called it, they said they were selling their coin. And but we're not even sure if it actually has a blockchain. Like they just say they have one, and you make money by persuading your friends and family to buy in it through you. And the people there, they were literally quoting Bible verses. Like this guy was saying, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And it was a very bizarre thing, and it was just it left a very bad taste in my mouth.
That's funny. That's funny. What I find interesting is these platforms, you know, people will phone me up and ask me about this, that, and the other thing platform, and they want to buy Bitcoin, right? Because they're sending them to this platform, and you tell them, you go through the logic with them, you know, and you show them the flags, but they're so convinced in their mind. Like I've helped people where, you know, you tell them you're getting scammed. Yeah, I know I'm getting scammed, but I still want to buy these Bitcoins and send them to where send them to the scammers. You know, like
Why?
trust me. Trust me. Like they just, you know, the dating scam is a really good one where, you know, the person's coming to buy Bitcoins and they tell me they're sending them to a friend. And I ask more details, and where's the friend? Well, they're in California. And the friend is a guy, it's a female that's buying the coins. And you know, I say, have you met this person? Well, yeah, I've met him online. Have you met him in person? Well, he's supposed to be coming to Regina in 2 months, right? And you tell him you're probably getting scammed. Like, you know, well, I'm still gonna send, you know, they're convinced. They still send money to these people. Like it's bizarre. So, and those are the scammers that I don't like because they're uh, they're being tricked, they're being fooled. The CRA scammers, that's just wrong. Uh, the investment platforms where customers go to those platforms themselves and buy into the multi-level marketing schemes and stuff like that, I don't feel as sorry for them because they're going into that situation with both eyes open and they're buying into that malarkey. Um, but the other scams where people are tricked or they're verbally threatened, those are the ones that I don't like, that I try and prevent as much as I can. And I warn the other scammers, you know, the other people that are, you know, buying for the investment platforms, but sometimes you can talk till you're blue in the face and they just don't hear you. They just don't get it. So it's tough.
Yeah, I think all that shows we are still very much in the very early days.
Is there any other questions from the audience?
You asked Ethan how he feels Ethereum's going to do compared to Bitcoin going forward.
Okay, question from the audience. How do you feel Ethereum is going to do compared to Bitcoin moving forward?
Well, I think firstly I don't think we should compare Ethereum and Bitcoin in the same way. I think they serve different purposes, and I think especially now, I think they've diverged significantly. It would be like comparing, I think, Coca-Cola stock and say Nvidia. They do completely different things, and so I don't think Ethereum will eclipse Bitcoin. I don't think it'll be the next Bitcoin. I don't think that's such a thing as the next Bitcoin. But at the same time, I think Ethereum, it might just be on its way to be like the network for the next internet, and it's definitely not there yet. Lots of problems with Ethereum, but if you look at how these big tech companies, they envision the path forward, metaverse, and which is basically what part of what Ethereum has been trying to do. And as we move more and more of our lives online, we hand over a lot of power to these big tech companies, and I think there is going to be a need for a decentralized version of all the services that we use every day. And I think if Ethereum, potentially, it is a thing that could underpin all of that.
I've always said that Bitcoin is about trust and Ethereum is about governance. And again, they do completely different things. Digital gold and digital oil. You know, they're both. I think they're both good holds. They're both good buy and holds, but look at them as completely different beasts, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah,
He's familiar with what?
Got one more question coming in. Are you familiar with the Motley Fool in Canada?
In the U.S.
Yes.
Or in the U.S.
But I won't say I'm a regular reader, but I know that website.
Okay.
So my point is, 6 months ago, they were promoting Bitcoin in a big way.
Okay.
Now, they haven't said much about Bitcoin, but they're really promoting Ethereum. So that goes back to my first question. So they're a strong proponent of Ethereum going forward here 3 to 5 years.
Did you hear that commentary, Ethan?
Yeah, I heard bits of it. Well, I'm going to rephrase the question and let me know if I heard correctly. So Motley Fool, it's been writing a lot about Bitcoin in the past, but 6 months ago it switched to writing heavily about Ethereum.
Yeah.
And what was the question on that?
What was the question on that?
Okay. So they're not saying as much about Bitcoin anymore. They're still promoting it, but not in a big way. But they are promoting Ethereum in a big way.
Okay, so what's the question?
Well, I guess the question is like, would you agree with that?
Okay, would you agree that like the Motley Fool has been 6 months ago pushing Bitcoin, now they're pushing Ethereum hard? Do you agree with that viewpoint of the Motley Fool? Are they right on what they're talking about?
Well, I haven't read it for a while, so I can't comment on the specifics of that. But I think just because it appears to be writing more about Ethereum now, it's not indicative of that Ethereum will eclipse Bitcoin one day. I think it's a very narrow snapshot on one website, and I think what it has done could be perhaps just a reflection of maybe one of their 2 or 3 of their writers, they got fired and new writers came up. Maybe the editor had just a new strategic vision for the future. Could be any number of things, but I would say though that this year has made me a lot more bullish on Ethereum, and I think perhaps that's what they are feeling as well. I've always been very bullish about Bitcoin, but I've never thought that much about Ethereum until this year.
I think, yeah, that like organizations like the Motley Fool, they're watching the trends. There's
Yeah, and I would say that Ethereum trends come and go as well. If you remember 2017, it was that was peak hype, and the whole ICO thing. Everyone was creating a new coin on Ethereum.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember the skyrocketing prices of Ether back then. And yeah, it probably just goes through like more wilder cycles than Bitcoin.
What was it like getting back to your book? You talked about going to a meetup in Toronto and you were basically sitting with the 6 Ethereum guys, Vitalik Buterin.
Oh no, just one.
Oh, just one. Okay.
I wrote about Vitalik, but I wasn't like sitting with him at the time.
Okay, I thought you were hanging out with the 6 regularly before they, as they were getting Ethereum going.
No, it's mostly Anthony Diorio.
Okay. Okay, cool. Is there any other questions from the audience?
What do you think of privacy coins going forward?
I think there'll be a big need for them because those blockchain analytics companies like Chainalysis, they make so much money from their contracts with the government. All those contracts are public. You can look at them. It's just millions upon millions every year. And I think this was even in the Edward Snowden leaks that even back then, the NSA was trying to track Bitcoin, and the authorities can do it very well. They can track Bitcoin transactions with a high degree of accuracy. So I think there will be definitely a greater need for privacy coins. And at the same time, I have seen ads that the NSA has put up. They are trying to hire people to crack Monero, but Monero devs are also trying to make the product more secure. So trying to stay one step ahead of the government. So yeah, I think as long as they stay one step ahead, there will always be a need for privacy coins.
Is he working on any projects, specific projects?
Are you working on any specific projects? So your mining business, you shut that down.
Yeah.
And you're into journalism. Are you working on any other projects within the crypto space?
Nope. I still have personal investments in crypto, and so I guess I watch this space pretty tightly, and I manage my portfolio. I shuffle things around from time to time, and I'm quite bullish on BNB, the Binance token. I would say I'm like 80 to 90% in Bitcoin, but I try to play around, and I have seen the metaverse coins. All of them shooting up after the Facebook announcement, and I think and again, not investment advice yet, but I'm talking long term in the years in the future. These metaverse things, I think they're going to be big.
Is your passion for crypto versus your passion for writing? Is it equal, higher, lower?
That's a good question. I think to compare the two would be to compare Bitcoin and Ethereum. So yeah, I probably about the same.
So right now you're just focused on writing and you keep in touch. You're obviously you keep in tune with the crypto industry, but writing is what's your day-to-day work.
Yeah.
Is what it would.
Well, I am writing about crypto, so I have a column in the Financial Post, and yeah, it's a crypto column.
Do you have any other books in the works?
Not yet. At least not ones that I can talk about yet.
Oh.
But one day.
Okay. Excellent.
Is he going to be in Miami? And does he think that there's going to be any major announcements?
Oh, are you going to Miami Bitcoin 2022? And do you think is there going to be any major announcements?
I think at that point it depends on what you consider major. I think what we considered major back this year might not be major next year, but
the El Salvador announcement at Bitcoin 2021 was pretty big.
Yeah, but I think if another country announces that at Miami next year, if it's a similar sized country also in Latin America, it's not that big a deal anymore. I think at least. But I personally want to go. I haven't been to any conferences ever since the pandemic began, and I really miss the crypto conferences. You know, that there's this joke that what is Bitcoin good for? What actual use case is there for it? Well, to have conferences. Back in 2017, that was a crazy period. I think every week there's like a conference. I went to so many. I had a great time. I love like connecting with like-minded people. I want to go to Miami, but I also don't like getting a stick shoved up my nose. So I was in New York.
Okay, tell us more. Tell us more.
For the Virgil Griffith trial. So to come back to Canada, you need a PCR test, and it's just deeply uncomfortable. There's a reason I've never done cocaine. You know, I don't think stuff should be going up my nose. So we shall see. Maybe by then they'll get rid of the requirement.
Well, there's a few of us from Regina going for sure, so it would be really cool if you go as well, because it would be awesome to meet you in person.
Oh yeah. Well, I think if they get rid of the testing requirement, very high chance I'll be going.
What the conferences that I've been to, it just hearing the stories from credible people, like you meet these people and you know they're intelligent business people, investors, traders, high net worth individuals, and you're in the same room with these people and they're telling the same stories in person that you're reading on Google, you're listening to on YouTube, all these stories, but you're hearing it in person from these people, and it just sounds different. It sounds, it just really pumps you up, like you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. That's why I love those conferences so much.
And it was like yeah, COVID has wrecked absolutely everything, and everybody's really eager to get back to the conferences, and having people listen to people that are saying the same things that you are is just so invigorating. And so, any questions from YouTube, Leander? No questions from YouTube. Oh yes.
Where does he feel his projection by December 31st of this year for Bitcoin?
Oh, the classic December 31st prediction, Bitcoin prediction.
Price prediction?
What's your prediction for December 30th, 2021.
Oh, I'm not going to make a price prediction. I made a price prediction on Reuters TV once, and I was absolutely wrong. Yeah, I'm not going to make a price prediction.
I remember in 2017, at the end of December, I remember telling my friends and family that 2018 was going to be a strong year in Bitcoin. True story. Boy, was I wrong, you know, like it's I personally think that the highs and lows are going to get less. Like there's going to be 50%, you know, down, upward and downward in the cycles rather than the 75, the 80% dips in the cycles. I think they're going to get less as the market cap gets bigger. The volatility will go down. There will still be 4-year cycles, but the volatility will be less painful.
What does Ethan think about like what Willy Woo says about how we're leaving the cycle stage and we're moving into like a more pure market?
Do you agree with what Willie says, where that Willy Woo says that we're going to be leaving the 4-year cycles?
I don't know. I have always stuck with the 4-year cycles, but I haven't read what Willy Woo wrote. I know he has a newsletter, right? I haven't read why he says we will leave the 4-year cycles. I don't know the rationale, so perhaps he could be right, but I'm quite inclined to agree with what you said, that we will still have the 4-year cycles, just less volatility.
There you go. See, Will, he agrees with me and not you. Any other questions?
What do you think of Bitcoin Cash, and all forks in different directions?
What's your opinions on the Bitcoin forks, the Bitcoin Cash, the SV, the Diamond, the Private, the blah 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 blah, all of the forks of Bitcoin? What do you think of them?
Well, I don't think much of them, and I think particularly Bitcoin Cash. Remember, like it was formed because of like infighting within the Bitcoin camp, and they said we're going to create our own coin, and then there was infighting within the BCH camp as well. If you remember the whole like BSV saga, and was it called ABC, and then that became the new BCH, but
yeah.
Satoshi's vision became its whole other thing, and it's led by Craig Wright. Yeah, like that so that automatically like just diminishes its credibility.
I think that the being able to fork Bitcoin so easily is great. It's good that you can do that, but the people that buy into the idea of we're going to fork Bitcoin to have something better than Bitcoin and replace Bitcoin, that's what I think is really, really funny, because that's never going to happen, right? A lot of critics say, well, why are you buying, why is Bitcoin so good if so you can create something even better? Well, the difference is that it's easy to create a new coin, but it's hard to create a new community. It's the community that gives Bitcoin strength. So you don't move a community from Bitcoin over to Bitcoin SV overnight. So I think that's what the difference is. It's basically the community. It's not necessarily the technology. So I do agree that Bitcoin is perfect technology, like it's a perfect recipe. But I laugh at the people that say, well, something is going to come along. The classic MySpace and the Facebook comparison, right? Where he says or the beta versus VHS comparison, right? it just won't happen. You just won't move the community. You know, it's like saying moving the convincing the moving all the VHS people over to Betamax. It's just not going to happen. Well, it never did happen. It never will because that technology is extinct. But that's what my opinion is. Is you just don't move the community as fast. So, but any other questions?
Does everybody know what VHS versus beta is?
Yes, there's a lot of Gen Xers and or millennials in here. So.
Yeah, I had a store that got out bigger.
Okay, Ethan. Well, it's been an hour and a half here. We've really enjoyed our conversation, and we should probably wrap things up here. So we're almost sold out of the books that we've ordered of yours. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to order more. And we had an awesome time tonight. Thank you very much.
Well, I had an awesome time as well. Thank you for having me.
Did you see the audience, Leander? Did we put the camera on the audience?
Just take your laptop and.
Oh, okay. Here you can see the audience here. So we got pretty much a full house.
Hello,
Okay.
hello.
Everybody give Ethan a round of applause.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ethan. We'll let you go and take care. Hopefully we'll see you in Miami.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. There you go.
Well done, Will.
What did you